Well, welcome, guys. Sorry about that. We had a little technical difficulties trying to get to you, but we are live and ready to go. Really good to see you. If you haven't already, if you've been hanging out in the background, please let us know that you're here using the chat. Just drop in your name and where you're joining in from. We're so glad we've got people all over the country, literally coast to coast. I'm seeing New Jersey all the way to California. So we have both coasts represented in the house as well as others, as well as over the pond. Jackson tuning in from the UK, which is awesome. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate the patience as we are getting going today. We're here to talk about how to accelerate your coaching and consultancy. And let me just introduce us. Tracy is the Director of Implementation for Giant. I am Director of Partners. We get to work with consultants and coaches and clients every day, all day long, helping them to be able to get the most out of what we're doing at Giant. And so hopefully you'll find these 30-minute live streams that we're doing on the Ascend platform really, really helpful. Tracy, go ahead and share my desktop and we'll get going into the meat of the content since we're starting just a little bit late. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to drop them in as comments in the chat, and we will address those here in just a little bit. But what I want to talk about today is the value of high tech and high touch. I'm also a consultant. I've been consulting for years, and this is something that's really, really important, especially for those of you that are trying to look to build sustainable businesses, to be able to have the leverage of what technology affords you, as well as having that high tech component, is a really important thing. And when I look at this is why I say that. So let's just take a look at technology for a second. Technology is amazing. I love technology. And when you're talking about what you do as a consultant or as a coach, some of the benefits that technology affords you are giving a self-paced growth and learning, like the person is usually in charge of being able to do that. There's an ownership in the process because it's something that they're actually investing in themselves. Imagine someone that's, wanting to watch TED videos, TED Talks, or go through some kind of e-class or something like that. There's an ownership that they're giving into the process when they're able to consume media and use technology in that way, which is really good. It's also very conducive if you happen to be like us and have a remote work environment, right? All of us are kind of struggling with that. Your clients, I know, are from a COVID-19 perspective. Many people find themselves either completely being remote or having different members of their team in the office and others are at home. Well, technology really affords a lot of opportunities to be able to serve people in the midst of this type of environment that we happen to find ourselves in right now. And it also is very accessible wherever, whenever it's needed. But technology is not the end all be all. And that's hard for me to say as a techie kind of guy, but the truth is that there are definitely some shortcomings when it comes to working with clients or organizations or leaders in leveraging technology. A few of them that I've experienced, it's just not sufficient for sustainability. Most people are well-intentioned, they start well, very few finish well. And so what you find is that people jump in and they dive in and they're watching and they're getting into a regular rhythm of learning and growing on their own. But without some kind of human element, they're apt to kind of fall off the wayside at some point. I also have this really strange thing. Like if you're talking about someone that says, I want to grow, I want to learn, how do we know that they're actually investing in learning the things that they need to learn, right? They're unique individuals who have unique challenges. And the fact is, most leaders I know are not fully self-aware. And so things that you as a consultant probably see that they need, they're probably not necessarily going to see all of that, which means they're not learning and growing on their own because they don't see the real issues that they need to work on. Self-paced usually means slower growth. It means that people are on again, off again, binge watch and then don't do anything for a while. And it's not a regular growing at an accelerated pace. And then lastly, and probably most important for what we're talking about, there's just a lack of accountability, right? When someone's just doing stuff on their own, how do you know that they're really using it consistently But even more than that, how do you know that they're actually doing something about the stuff that they've learned, actually applying it, actually using it in real life circumstances, environments that impact other people? There's just a lack of accountability when you're out there on your own doing stuff. Now, you may say, well, that's great. I understand that. That's why I do what I do, right? It's me. And you're right, right? Doing face-to-face consulting, there are benefits, but there's also weaknesses. Some of the benefits is that your clients are able to maximize your expertise and experience, right? It's not cookie cutter. You're not just going in there and saying, oh, I know exactly what you need because I've worked with 10 other teams and everybody needs exactly the same thing. All right, maybe there's some small pieces that are common, but the reality is that what they need from you is different than what someone else needs. And you being in the room, so to speak, with them, face-to-face consulting, you're able to see their real challenges and to be able to custom help them with what their unique needs are. That's hard to do with any other way except for you being there. There's also a greater accountability, right? Because like with my clients, I am forever challenging my clients. In fact, I had this conversation yesterday, right, with someone that I'm coaching to say, look, if we're at the end of this year-long process and you're not getting what you feel like you should get out of this process, it's not on me, because I know the work that I'm putting in and I know the benefit of the tools and the content specifically that Giant leverages. You've got to put in your hard work, and I'm able to kind of call people up and bring the challenge in a healthy way to make sure that they're actually practicing the things that we're trying to get them to do. And it does usually bring accelerated learning and growth for individuals or teams. Usually they will grow faster and better and more consistently when they have someone like you that's actually walking alongside them. But there's some downsides to it just being you in the room, right? What happens when you're not there? This is like the universal challenge with all of my clients, right? They put on a good face. They say the right things. They do the right things when I'm in the building. And then I leave and maybe I don't come back for a few weeks. Chances are some of them aren't even doing anything in between. And that's part of the lack of kind of continuity, is if it's just you in the room, then what happens when you're not in the room anymore? It's also the most expensive option that you can afford to people, right? Them paying you to be in the room is the most expensive thing that they can pay for. It's a valuable asset. So that's not good when it comes to how to serve your clients best, because you're putting the most expensive option on the table first. And then lastly, and this is definitely something that you've probably had to deal with in the midst of COVID, if you're a coach or a consultant, is it's just restrictive. Anytime you're working with teams that are fully remote, a lot of our consultants at Giant have had to kind of retool how they do things because they were used to delivering in person, and all of a sudden nobody's in person. How do you do that, right? Or how do you do, and this is the unique challenge I just told our consultants this week. I said, one of the new skill sets of a 21st century consultant is we have to figure out how to lead in a hybrid environment. How do I pour into a team in person for those that are in person, but also including people that may be tuning in virtually through a Zoom call or something like that? That's a unique skill set that's really difficult to do when it's just you. So for Giant, when we look at that, we just think that there's a best of both worlds scenario. And it's actually why we do what we do at Giant, and that is having high tech plus high touch. Here's the benefits for your clients. They get the most from you because you have that high touch component, but they also are being reinforced when you're not there, right? They get the best. When you're there and when you're not there, they're continuing to learn, and there's a continuity. There's a shared ownership in the growth process, right? Because you're owning your piece of it as a consultant to be able to help steward and lead and facilitate growth in a team or a person. But it's not just on you, it's also on them too. They have to own the process of when you're not together, of being able to use the technology. It actually works really great in a remote and a hybrid team environment, right? Because you can have that unique mixture of when I'm in front of you or when I'm digital, and you can mix and match however the client needs you to be able to do that. And there's a layer of accountability that's just naturally built in, which leads them to actually have greater impact in what you're doing with them. There's benefits for you too, right? It provides a deeper level of engagement. We're going to actually talk about this more in detail next week. how do you build deeper engagement with a client? Because when you go deeper, it affords you the ability that leads to greater impact for your client. And it usually leads to greater work with you. We get down here to this lengthens your contracts. In most cases, having that digital plus you option usually means that they're going to stick around longer, which means you can work with them longer. It also positions you as an individual as a trusted resource. You're not just a delivery mechanism. It's not just training. You're actually a unique advisor. It positions the work as sustainable, right? They can actually see an end path that, oh, I'm not like dependent on you for the next 10 years, that we're going to have to continue to hire you. There's actually a mode for us to eventually get to where we can be self-sustaining down the line. And then it eliminates the need for you to be able to custom build resources. I face this a lot of times with new guides, especially who come in and they sign on to Accelerate, one of our products that's our guide certification process, and they join in. We've got hundreds of these people I'm working with on a weekly basis with our team. And there's a lot of times they'll come to me and go, oh, like I'm trying to build this and I'm trying to do this. And I'm like, okay, hold on. Like we actually have that pre-built. Like all you have to do is just log in. Here's where you can download it and find it. Here's a PowerPoint deck. Here's flyers that you can use. Here's worksheets for your team. Here's a feature on the website that you actually use for training. Like you don't have to invent the wheel. We've already invented a lot of it. Leverage our experience over the past couple of decades of working with teams all over the world. And it just eliminates the need for you to do a lot of that busy work that comes sometimes with your job. So for us, we often say Giant is a SaaS plus company, right? It's SaaS as in software as a service, because there's this website that you're tuning in right now and watching this on, or you're kind of growing on the Giant platform. But it's also coupled with this mainstay of guides and consultants and people who are certified that can provide a high touch component into people using that. And that's the benefit that we afford to people. And so if you're looking in on this and thinking, well, how can I, as a leader, to be able to leverage more, especially if I'm trying to grow my own consulting and coaching practice, I would highly encourage you to check out what we're doing in that space, because it would really afford you all of this, and especially give you access to a lot of assets and resources and tools that you just don't need to spend your time inventing and creating. So hopefully that's helpful for you, just to reframe your mindset a little bit of seeing how each one of these brings a unique benefit, and how maybe you could balance between what you're leveraging technology for and what your clients still need you for, especially in this age that we find ourselves in. I want to answer questions if anybody, we've got some time. Tracy, I don't know if there's anything that's come through the comment or chats, or anything you would add in.
There's nothing in the chats at this point, but I would ask, what do you say to people who they're just not techie and they're intimidated by the tech side, and they think, I'll just keep doing it the way I've been doing it?
Yeah, so I get that. I mean, there's people, some of you probably embrace technology a lot quicker than other people. Here's what I've found. The consultants and guides that I work with that are kind of less technically savvy, if you will, or just haven't used it as much, are usually the ones that lean into us a little bit heavier. The people that are a little bit more, kind of on their own, they're very comfortable with technology, they'll kind of use us in part, and then they'll also kind of put their own stuff together. The people that are just going, how do I do this? And I don't really use technology that much. They're actually the ones that lean into Giant even more. So they're the ones that are kind of using the content and the resources that we've already put together. They're using the website the way that we've built it, and just kind of following along with what we suggest. And that's the ability, I guess, that Giant definitely fills in those gaps. If you happen to be that person that goes, I especially if you've been an in-person consultant for a while and you don't know how to transition, or you're struggling transition into this high-tech space now with COVID-19, I would, it's not for everybody, and we'll be the first to tell you if we don't feel like it's the best fit for you. But to actually sign up, and I'll show her a link here in just a minute, to actually learn a little bit more about Accelerate and how you could kind of leverage what we're doing. I would definitely say check that out, especially if you're not as tech savvy, because that's part of the benefit of what we're doing.
Yeah, here's another one. Chris Jackson's asking, how do we maintain high touch?
Yeah, great. And this is part of the reason that you need to be um, focusing on retainers. We just talked about this today. We have a guide stream once a week, and we were talking about um, creating sustainability with your clients and going deeper. And it was all about this. It was about this idea of you start with real data. There's tools that we have, and there's tools that you use to actually get in and understand what's really going on with your client, and then being able to figure out what you have to offer that meets their needs. And then you put together a plan, and you just work the plan. Usually, for the consultants and especially my clients that I'm working with, I'm usually going in and working with them for maybe 3 months on a plan. Like, we've identified some areas that they need to grow. So we start doing some stuff intentionally to try to move the needle. And then we come back 3 months later or 6 months later and we reassess. We kind of do another checkpoint and we see, where are you at and where do we need to tweak? And I think it requires that kind of regular touch points, Jackson. It may be, once a month that you're there in person with the client. It may be a every other week call with the lead, kind of account lead, but you've got to have that built-in kind of ongoing relationship rhythm versus what a lot of coaches and consultants I see. They just kind of get out there and they deliver a workshop or they deliver a product, but they're not really walking alongside an organization. That's good for them, by the way, and it's good for you. It's good for them when you're next to them for a season. And obviously, it's good for you because it means that there's predictable revenue that's coming in for your business on an ongoing basis that you can see ahead. So hopefully that helped. If you have any other questions, Jackson, or anybody else, feel free to drop them into the chat.
Yeah, that's all the questions we have right now coming through. But I liken this. I was telling you earlier when we were talking about high tech, I liken it to Weight Watchers, right? So there was a day when you could go to Weight Watchers, but there wasn't any tech aspect to it. Now you've got some app or something that you can use. And so you've got that accountability through the high touch when you go to the meetings or whatever, but then you've got that high tech on your phone or whatever app you're using. So that's kind of how I equate it in my mind. Yeah.
And I think that's a great analogy, right? Because we've all, I think probably most of us have been in a situation where we've tried to get in better shape or lose weight or whatever. And, when you're not doing it by yourself, you're probably doing it better. That's just my experience with pretty much anything in life is, in fact, this is why I tell, I do a lot of coaching groups versus one-on-one coaching with clients. I usually try to recommend coaching groups as much as possible because I just tell them, look, if it's just you and I can help to a certain point. I'm not like I have all the answers, but I definitely can benefit you. But when there's just something about being connected to a group of people that are all working together and there's an accountability to that. That's tremendous when you can do that. And you're right, doing it on your own, a lot of times it's harder to be able to sustain.
Yeah, here's another one from Jackson, just to follow up. He says, what is the role of a guide?
Yeah, so guide is just one of our words. If you've been on the platform anytime at all, you're going to see mountains galore, right? There's mountain imagery all over the place. And that's very intentional because for us, a couple of things. We talk about Sherpa a lot. And what we mean by Sherpa is, if you were to ever see someone that is climbing Mount Everest, right? You see the victory pose at the top of Mount Everest. That's amazing. I don't ever want to take away from that. I would love to hear if anybody's on the call that has actually been on Everest. I will never be that person. So if I ever did, I would be the first to take a picture. But the truth is, nobody climbs Mount Everest by themselves, right? Nobody. Like they usually employ a Sherpa, and a Sherpa is an indigenous people group on the mountain in Nepal who were born on the mountain. They've been raised on the mountain. Their bodies are acclimated to the higher altitudes. They know how to get to the summit. They know the right paths to take and how to do it when, at the right timing, with the right tools. And then they don't do it just for them. Their whole livelihood is bringing other people with them. We just feel like that's a beautiful picture of leadership. It's both about you climbing the mountain. You need to go first, but it's not about you. It's also about the other people that you can bring with you. So we often equate being a leader to kind of being a Sherpa in the mountain climbing experience. Guide is just like one step beyond that to say some of us, need a guide that's helping organize all of these people that are going up. So if you're working with an organization, for instance, I've got a company that I work with that's about 100 employees. There's lots of Sherpas in the building that are helping their teams as leaders, getting healthier and also helping pour into their leaders. I'm kind of acting as a guide because I'm coming in and saying, okay, here's the plan. Here's what we're going to do for the next season. Here's how we're going to go about it. And then the leaders are the ones that actually carry it out. So we talk about our sort of guides in general for Giant are really just people that are getting certified on Giant content and tools. It's a subscription that you can pay $199 a month, be able to come in and learn how to deliver 5 voices and learn how to become an expert at our tools and content. And it comes with not just the in-depth certification kind of learning process that you get, it connects you to hundreds of other guides all over the world. They're trying to do the same thing as you. We have a thriving Slack community of consultants and coaches all over the world, so you're not doing it alone. It's also live streams on the platform. We do live streams directly on here just for guides, helping them build their businesses, as well as other benefits along with that. And it comes with all the resources. So it's not just teaching you the content. You come out of it with, loads of presentation decks that you can use and workbooks and worksheets and best practices and videos, obviously, on the platform. You can actually resell the platform into using it with your clients. So lots of benefits. If you're interested, it's probably as perfect as a time as ever to show this slide. If you're interested in learning more about what it means to be a guide in the Giant world, I would encourage you go to giantworldwide.com/accelerate and learn a little bit more about our certification process and business. I would encourage you click that blue button that's on the screen that says schedule info call. That'll connect you to somebody on our team that'll just walk you through answering questions and hearing kind of your unique needs. And we'll be, again, I'm not just saying that, we will be the first ones to tell you if we don't feel like what we offer is something that would help, or we can talk about where it might help you best. And then you can make your own decision. But I would encourage you, go to that website, check it out, click the button, and learn a little bit more. That's something that, if you did sign on, you would see a whole lot more of me for sure, because that's all I do on a weekend basis is talk to guides and consultants. But does that answer your question, Jackson? Please feel free to clarify if there's anything else, or if anybody else has any other questions, happy to address those. Great.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you guys, you see the wisdom that kind of Chris exudes, and that is a really cool benefit of being a guide here within Giant, is that you really get a personal touch of Chris, and he's so attentive and helpful. And I know that's something that people always brag about is, wow, I didn't realize the resource that we would get with Chris. So it's a really an amazing
thing.
And
that's true. And I'd say it's not just me, it's Hunter, it's the rest of the team, and it's the guide community. I mean, I think that's probably the number one thing that we hear, especially from people who've done any kind of certification process. I think they're very surprised, pleasantly surprised at the high touch element of what we do, because guess what? This is what we do, right? The reason I'm teaching it is because we do high tech really well and we do high touch really well. And in that community, that thriving community, it's just, it's hard to replicate elsewhere. And so again, go to giantworldwide.com/accelerate if you're interested in learning more. We're going to be back here again. This is every Tuesday at 3 p.m. We got started a few minutes late today, but we'll work hard to be on time. But come back here next Tuesday at 3 p.m. And next week, we're going to be talking about how do you build deeper client engagement. Like in particular, we'll show you some of the stuff that we have on the platform that's available for you to be able to use to actually build a deeper relationship, to go deeper with a client. Again, that's going to bring about higher impact, which is good for them. And it's going to increase the amount of time that you're working alongside a leader. A lot of times our guides, when they've heard this material, it helps them to shift away from this project mindset, this product mindset, to actually moving to more of a retainer relationship based offering that helps them to actually successfully build their consulting business. So we'll talk about that next week, 3 p.m. on September 1st. Love having you guys here. Here's what I would say. If there's any other questions, feel free to drop them in, as well as any kind of feedback. You can actually stay on this page as long as you want. Right, Tracy?
That's right. Yeah, and let us know how you thought about the live stream today. And there was a last question coming in about cost of becoming one of our guides. So I'd encourage those of you to go to that link that Chris just gave and get on a guide call. We can give you a demo and give you all the specifics about becoming a guide here.
Yeah, and I love that Steve is in the background. Steve's one of our guides, and I promise you we did not pay him to show up and say that. But, becoming a guide, he said, is one of the best decisions I've ever made. Much better leader because of it. So I appreciate that, Steve. Thankful for you being a part of our community. If you guys do have any kind of questions, please do check out that link and book a call and find out a little bit more.
That's right. So we'll end the broadcast, but we'll check out the chat for the next couple minutes. So if you have any last questions or words, feel free to put them on there and we'll get back to you. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
You bet. All right. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.